9, 7, 5 seconds. Start the count.
Well, welcome once again to the Old Cow Report, and of course, I'm your host, Chuck Lee. We're coming to you live. Beautiful January evening, 1999. First show of the year for the Old Cow Report. We're coming to you live. Right here from the beautiful downtown Eau Claire Arena and former cesspool. Glad to have you with us tonight on the live program. And of course, there's the Old Cow. They're trying to play some music. I think the old Christmas batteries are about worn out on it. Maybe somebody can donate some batteries. All right, well, as you can see, I'm here by myself tonight. Old Fred the True Stafford is home recuperating from an ailment. His doctor prescribed some kind of cream to put on his face, and it literally ate the skin off of his face, so he's in really bad shape. So for those of you who want to give him a call, his number's in the phone book, and wish him a speedy recovery, but it did some severe harm to his face, and he's been really in pain the last week. He was on the show last Monday night when it was just starting to, it's almost acted like an acid. It was eating into his face, and it just really gave him a hard time there. So he's recuperating at home, and he'll be with us again next time on the Old Cow Report. Of course, coming to you live, as you all know, it's pretty cold out there tonight. It's supposed to be about 15, 20 degrees below zero tonight, so I want to remind you to make sure you bring in your cats and dogs and your parrots and other animals. If you got them outside, and make sure that they get out of the cold. At least get them out of the wind. The wind will get them more than the cold will. With those severe temperatures tonight, make sure that you do that. All right, well, we have, as usual, a lot to talk about on this first show of 1999. This is the last year leading up to the millennium, and of course we have the Y2K bug to worry about all year this year, and some people are saying that it's already showing up in the first week of January of 99. Some systems are having trouble, but a lot of the computer systems around the world and the United States are going to be having some problems with when the calendar flips over from 99 to 00. Some of the older systems were programmed to recognize that as the year 1900 instead of the year 2000. So we're going to have some problems there. All right, for those of you who want to call in tonight, the number is 839-6261. There's a job application form floating around the city, and it's basically something like this. It's a little bit longer. I had to make a copy of it, so I didn't get all of it, but it starts out saying now hiring, and it goes on to say dates unlimited, and it's a division of another company here in town that's based the P.O. Box here in Eau Claire. And it starts out, greetings, Dates Unlimited is looking for various individuals to represent us at various activities. Below is a list of the qualifications needed to take part in this special offer. You must be from Eau Claire or surrounding area, must not be over age 36, must never have been married, must be a non-smoker, must be a non-drinker, must not have any sexually transmitted diseases, must not have any children, must not be over 5'10", must not weigh over 150 pounds. And it says at the bottom, there are a variety of ways that you can benefit from Dates Unlimited. We have special activities, products, and services available to the people who represent us. If you are interested in participating in this, please let us know when you send in your application. Well, somebody informed me of this offer, and then in the same breath they let me know that there's about 4 or 5 different areas here where they're actually discriminating against people in the area of hiring. Like age discrimination, you can't be over age 36. Your marriage status, it says here you can never be married. Talks about drinking and smoking. I think there's some new laws on drinking, but you can't be discriminated against for that. Can't be discriminated against if you have any kind of sexually transmitted diseases. Can't be discriminated against if you have children. You can't be discriminated against because of physical barriers like being over 5'10" or weighing over 150 pounds. Those are both illegal. And another thing is you have to be from the Eau Claire or surrounding areas. They can't discriminate on geographical reasons. So this here is just a handful of illegal hiring practices going on here. I'm sure they'll be challenged. This was found by somebody that does hiring for a company in the Eau Claire area, and they thought it was amusing that this company was actually running an ad like that with so many violations of the hiring by federal and state hiring laws in this country. All right, well, got another Christmas letter. This one is from Marlboro again, and they really seem to be hung up on this carbon monoxide deal. Just about everywhere you look on this mailer, it says, on the back it says, cigarette smoke contains carbon monoxide. They really want you to know that. And it does amongst hundreds of other chemicals, it does. But this here came to me right after Christmas. And this one has to do with get the miles and get the gear. And once again, the main flyer in there on the back of my address had, cigarette smoke contains carbon monoxide. This is by Marlboro. It says here, get the miles and get the gear. I got to thinking about it. If you're laying in a hospital dying of lung cancer and you just cut out your lungs, maybe half your lip and part of your neck and your throat, are you going to be able to go out and run around and add up some miles so that you can get their gear? That's the only thing you'll be able to use is this tent here. You can set it up as an oxygen tent in your hospital when you're dying because you can't breathe. So there you have it. But anyway, inside of it is, and on the back of this other flyer then, it says on the bottom here, carbon monoxide. Cigarette smoke contains carbon monoxide. Then it's just a catalog of all the little gifts you can get from smoking plenty of Marlboro. You can get all these various, there's your oxygen tent, and there's your surgical gown when they're cutting out your lungs. And here's some poker you can play for your last meal when you're laying there dying. Here's a watch so you can watch the last minutes of your life ticking away as you're taking your last struggling breath from too many cigarettes. There's a surgical outfit there. But anyway, most of these on here say carbon monoxide, but then I noticed there's a few of them in here they threw in Surgeon General's warning, smoking by pregnant women may result in fetal injury, premature birth, and low birth weight. But most of these images here are for men. So once again, they're putting a male image with a female quotation, or they're talking about carbon monoxide, where most people, if you went out and did a survey, they wouldn't really know what carbon monoxide does. But I'll tell you what it does. Right after I got done reading that, I looked at Menards flyer for this week. And on the front page of the Menards Hot Deals 99 flyer, right in the middle, and I'll fold it down, is an ad right there for a carbon monoxide detector. So while you're laying in your hospital bed dying of cancer and you're sucking on that last cigarette, you should buy you one of these so that the alarm will go off and you'll know that you're smoking carbon monoxide. But they sell these for a reason, ladies and gentlemen, and that reason is because carbon monoxide is a deadly poison. And this here, you put these in your house or in enclosed areas so that you're not breathing too much carbon monoxide and killing yourself. So, there you have it. Once again, Marlboro's pushing their cigarettes and their little gifts and telling you that cigarette smoke has carbon monoxide. All right, we're going to take our first call here in a minute, but got some very serious news that came over the wire here tonight. And, you know, last week we had a call around. It might have been an animal rights activist, maybe not. He was worried about the new chicken factory that's coming into the area. You know, there are already dozens, if not hundreds, of chicken factories all scattered all over Wisconsin already. There's one down by, there's several of them on the way between Eau Claire and Arcadia. And I'm sure there's other animals, well, just about every farm has animals out there raised. But this news is coming out of Prairie du Chien if it's on the up and up. It was put in my mailbox here at Cable Channel 11. It says animal rights activists released 71,000 cows into the wild. It's kind of hard to believe that 71,000 cows were left out. Says members of the radical group Animal Liberation Front swept through a 900 square mile region of western Wisconsin on Monday, freeing an estimated 71,000 cows from their human captors. These cows are finally free to run wild through the wilderness, said Ski Mask ALF member Brent, loosing a 200 head Guernsey herd from Milkrite Dairy in Reedsburg. No creature should have to live in servitude to humans. Within hours of the cows' release, police departments throughout the area began receiving reports of bovine fatalities. We've been getting calls all night long, Viroqua Police Chief Dale Chambers said. So far, 43 cows have been hit by cars, 11 have fallen off bridges and drowned, and 3 have been electrocuted from chewing on power lines. Among the 71,000 freed cows were 450 jerseys from the Cumberland Dairy Farm near Prairie du Chien, liberated by a team of activists in a midnight raid. Sounds like this reporter's in on this deal. The cows were loaded onto trucks, then transported 100 miles north and freed in a forest clearing, where, as of press time, all 450 were standing around eating grass. The long-distance transport of the Cumberland cows was deemed necessary in light of an event last August when 80 milking shorthorns were released from the Milewski farm in Beloit, only to wander on back into their pens the next day. That's funny how the cows want to go back home. It was the greatest thrill of my life to have personally broken the padlock on the gate that cruelly held these cows, Animal Liberation Front member Ross Kreitzman said. As long as I live, I'll never forget the lazy, sluggish look in those cows' eyes as I shoved them through the gate with all of my might. Then finally, in the final statement here, cows do not belong in dairy farmers' pens. They belong out in the wilderness where they may run free with the wolves and bears, PETA spokesperson Linda McCune said. This raid was an important first step towards returning the proud, majestic cow to its natural environments. Monday's cow release is the highest profile raid for the Animal Liberation Front since October of '96, when the group released 3 million chickens into Yosemite National Park. So there you have it, folks, the Animal Liberation Front at work again. All right, we're going to take our first call here, and then we got some other news coming up, and facts and figures, and there's some new scandals coming out of Washington. And of course, if you want to call, remember the number is 839-6261. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, partner.
Hello.
I got a question for you. If you're going to do a TV show, you might want to look up at the camera once in a while. I got a couple other things to tell you. I think they should impeach you, not Clinton. I think you need to open your mind to a few more views if you're going to be on TV. And take off the goofy glasses, dude. All right?
Hey, Junior. And I guess he hung up there. It must be one of those Hollywood producers back here in the Midwest for the snow season. Must be skiing up north or something. Well, when you're reading there, Junior, you have to look down to read. Of course, I could hold it up like this and read. But anyway, that's just his opinion. All right. Some sad news from the world of boxing today. Twice, Jerry Quarry, age 53, died, I think this morning. He fought Muhammad Ali twice and lost 2 title shots, but Jerry Quarry's legacy may be a chilling reminder of his sports brutality. The former heavyweight fighter died Sunday at a Templeton, California hospital after a long descent into dementia brought on by repeated blows to the head. The progressive malady, similar to Alzheimer's disease, left Quarry virtually helpless and in the care of his family in his final years. He took some severe beatings in there, not only from Muhammad Ali, but several other heavyweight boxers in his career. And he's dead at age 53. Jerry Quarry. Okay. A lot of things happen on this date in history. And we'll start and see what happened here today. On this date in history, in the year 1920 birth dates. William Colby was born. Some of you probably remember he was found in a suspicious death here a couple years ago. They found him by his boat dock out east. He was going to do the, from what I understand, he was going to do the front, the lead-in on a book that was dealing with the Vince Foster death. And he actually came out and said that Vince Foster, one of the highest officials to be assassinated since Kennedy in this country, Colby was going to do the introduction to a book being written by an Eastern reporter that has been doing research on the Vince Foster death. Well, Colby came up dead not too long before that book was supposed to come out. He was born on this date in 1920. And who else? Somebody you probably recognize, Diane Cannon, born in 1937. She would make her 62 years old today. She doesn't look it. Okay, and let's see who died on this date. T.S. Eliot, the poet, dies in London at age 76 back in 1965. And that looks like about it. Okay, we're going to take another call here in a second, and then we're going to get into some of this information coming out of Peru and out of Washington. So go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, I think the guy who just called you was kind of rude, and I think you're doing a good job.
Well, thank you very much. And of course, it takes all kinds of people. It's probably one of them blockheads that watched football for 16 weeks, and he doesn't know how to function now that the football season's over.
Right, and I think that what you said about the cigarettes is good too, because I think cigarette smoking is bad.
Well, it definitely is, and I woke up about 13 years ago and quit. About 13 years ago in December, and I know millions of other people have quit, and they're here to talk about it. But there's millions of others that didn't quit, and they're dead now, and like over 300,000 a year dying from tobacco-related illnesses and diseases. So it is something we got to get a handle on, and it's more than just Bill Clinton talking about it. It's the whole country needs to come to grips with this thing, and besides that, we need to quit exporting this poison to other countries like China. We're just dumping millions of packs of cigarettes on China and other third world countries.
Right.
And we're going to have disasters over there in a few years because of it.
I think your glasses are cool.
Well, thank you very much. When I lost my eye back there in the war, I had to start wearing these specially treated and filtered glasses so that I could see. And so they can make fun of my glasses, but I got to be able to see and read all of this very important information, and we got to get out to the people here in the Eau Claire area.
I think they're jealous because they're cool.
Well, thank you.
Have a good night.
All right, thanks for calling in. Okay there. All right, well, as you know, we mentioned earlier that Fred won't be here tonight, and it's always a sad situation when Fred can't come on because he's always got some good information to talk about, but we'll see if we can carry on without him, and we might even try and get a call out to him there at home and see how he's doing. All right, for those of you who have probably never heard of this group, they've caused the death of between 30 and 50,000 people since 1980. And the name of the group is the Shining Path. What is a communist, Maoist, Cuban revolutionary group that has been terrorizing Peru for the last 19 years. And one of their top military leaders, or their top military leader, was captured over the weekend. Peru's anti-terrorist police have captured the Maoist Shining Path rebels' top military leader in the capital, the country's leading newspaper reported Monday. Juan Carlos Rios was captured December 31st in Lima's industrial slum of Vitari, and where he was in charge of organizing workers and neighborhood networks for the group. Police have not confirmed or denied the capture. Rios had been captured back in '92 as he led strikes by workers in Lima's port city of Callao, but he later escaped prison by switching names with the help of his lawyer, police say. Peru's bloody war against the Shining Path and pro-Cuban Tupac Amaru revolutionary movement has left over 30,000 people dead since 1980. However, political violence has fallen sharply since the capture of top rebel leaders
in the middle to late 90s. Shining Path rebels continue to operate in remote parts of Peru's north and central jungle, and agents have tried to rebuild shattered networks in some Lima shanty towns. So Cuba is still trying to export their brand of communism into these South American countries, and they really haven't gained much in Peru. That's why this bloodthirsty group of Shining Path rebels they just go into villages and kill half the people there, whether they are friendly or not. Their modus operandi was just to murder and slaughter everybody in their sight, and by fear take over the country. Well, they didn't get the job done, but they killed well over 30,000 people in 20 years trying to take over that country. Peru's not that big of a country to begin with. Okay, go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
How you doing there, Chuck?
All right.
First of all, I'd like to comment on that first caller. In typical liberal fashion, he had to belittle himself, belittling you, and had nothing to say of any relevance whatsoever. So I commend you on a good job so far.
Well, thank you. Well, I hadn't even brought up the impeachment effort, and luckily I'm not in office, because maybe I would be impeached, but
Yeah.
who knows. But anyway, we will be talking probably about the impeachment issue later tonight.
It's an important issue, I think. As a second-time caller, I'd just like to get, I've watched the show a few times, I've only called in one other time. I'd just like to get your point of view. You were talking about cigarette smoking earlier.
Right.
And again, I think it's great that you're against smoking, but what are your feelings on smoking as a business itself, as a big business, as an enterprise? Are you in favor of them continuing their entrepreneurial activities, or are you completely against it? What are your feelings on the entire tobacco industry, I guess?
Sure. I've had a plan about that for many years, and the plan is what we need to do is first start with the farmers and get them weaned off of the tobacco crop of growing it and get them onto other crops, other cash crops. And if we have to give them grants and loans to do that, that's fine. No problem there. Let's give the cash grants and whatever it takes to not only wean those farmers from tobacco, but get another crop growing so that they can continue to hire the farm hands, continue to buy the fertilizer, the seed, all the things that go along with farming, so that we just don't pull the rug out from underneath them, and that whole enterprise is just collapses, and hundreds of thousands of people are out of work. But if we gradually do it, we can start now and gradually wean the country off of tobacco and off of growing tobacco and everything that's built up around it, the factories, the people that are hired to make the cigarettes, to distribute them, all the stores that sell tobacco and all that. We've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people that are tied up in this addictive drug that's out there illegally on the market. And so if we're going to do it, wean it off, it's just like weaning somebody off heroin. You're not going to do it overnight. It takes a period of slowly withdrawing that. And so we probably need to start with the farmers and get them growing other crops, and then get the tobacco companies themselves to quit producing as much. And over maybe a 10-year period, we can reduce it down to like 5, 10, 20% of what we have now. But if we do it overnight, it's just it could cause almost a recession in this country. Just too many people and too much money. Philip Morris is a giant company. P. Lorillide, Brown and Williamson Tobacco. These companies have diversified. They're trying to diversify in other areas so that they're not totally subservient to tobacco, but still a lot more work to be done. And of course, you got farmers that have been growing this stuff since the 1700s. It's been handed down from generation to generation in this country, and that's where we need to start, is teaching them. Plus, what I've always suggested is we take more of that money that is taxed on cigarettes, take that money and divert it into treatment centers to get people off of tobacco, just like they're treated for alcoholism. Let them go into a drying out environment where they're actually weaned off tobacco like they are off alcohol, go through a treatment center 3 weeks or whatever it takes, and get insurance to cover that process. And hopefully by diverting people off of tobacco that way, we're going to save money in the long run, because we're not going to have as many people laying in hospital beds dying, and all of the hundreds of different diseases that are tied in with tobacco, from emphysema to lung cancer. And so we need to have treatment centers. We can take some of that tax money from the cigarettes to open up treatment centers. And I would encourage our legislators in this state to get the ball rolling by opening a couple of them and diverting some of the tax dollars from cigarettes into opening a few treatment centers and be in the vanguard. Wisconsin has always looked to for their progressive ways in education and other areas. Let's be progressive in the area of changing the way we treat people that are addicted to tobacco. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, my name is John Snyder. I'm a teacher at Regis High School.
All right.
I heard you make a comment on cigarette smoking, and that's pretty interesting. I was wondering, what are your takes on marijuana and the legalization of marijuana? I was just wondering what you thought.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting. What kind of plant is that back? Behind you?
Where's that? Right?
Your that hand. Right behind you?
Right. This plant.
Yes.
It's definitely not marijuana.
Oh, okay.
All right, what's my thoughts about marijuana? Marijuana is another one of those drugs that have been around in this country probably as long as we've had a country here. I don't know, it's probably imported in from other countries, but it's here now and it's been here. There's been a loosening of the laws and a tightening of the laws and a loosening of the laws, and then now we seem to be, the pendulum seems to be swinging towards tightening them again. And we can continue to fill up the prisons and the county jails and the probation offices and the parole offices with people that are dabbling in marijuana, but that's not really solving the problem. We should probably have more of a diversion in the area of marijuana and get into working on cracking down on the hardcore drugs that are really causing some severe problems in this country. Not too many people are murdering each other over marijuana on the street corners. They're fighting over the crack and the heroin and the amphetamine traffic in this country. And marijuana is not a drug that probably should be legalized. That would just give us a third drug that we'd have to worry about. But we can have some diversion so that we can loosen up some of the not hospital beds, but the prison beds and the jail space, and so we can put the real criminals in there and have some other kind of diversion programs for the people that are addicted to marijuana. And it is kind of an addictive drug. It's probably on a par with nicotine. Matter of fact, I've read some studies where the marijuana chemicals in marijuana are 4 times more harmful to your lungs than nicotine and tar. So there are some health problems there with marijuana, and it probably shouldn't be legalized, but they can look at decriminalizing it more and diverting more people out of the legal system into other programs. Go ahead, caller, on the air.
Hi, Chuck. How you doing?
All right.
Good. I want to wish you a happy New Year.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
And
Same to you.
My name's Bob. I'm a first-time caller.
All right.
And I want to find out what do you think of that Packer game the other night?
Well, you know, Freddie, I called up Freddie and I said, did the Packers win? He said, yeah. So I went to sleep thinking, well, the Packers win. Now they got to play the Vikings here probably. And then I opened up the paper and read where the Packers had lost, so he pulled my leg on that. But I think the Packers, this was just a transition year for them. They won the Super Bowl, then they lost the Super Bowl, and then this year was kind of a watershed period for them where there's some discontent there. They lost a few players to injuries and trades, and like any great team, it just you're in the spotlight for a year or two, and then things happen. The limelight dissipates, and everyone comes back down to reality, and people just start kind of going their own ways, and those teams move. They just can't get back that same team they had that won the Super Bowl, and that's what's happened with Green Bay. It's just they're in a transition period now. They're going to have to rebuild if they want to get back. Again, they might not have Holmgren in there, and they might not have the same quarterback. Reggie White's retiring. So Green Bay's moving on to a whole different structure now, and maybe they're in for some rough times. Look at Chicago. Just a few years ago, Chicago was on top, and now they can't hardly win a game for nothing. And so Green Bay kind of went up there. It took them many years to get to the top, and now they're kind of leveled off, and maybe they went down a notch. But still, what they end up 11-5 and 1 loss in the playoffs. it's still not a bad year. Many times I wish the Vikings had that kind of record.
Yeah, that's for sure. What do you think of our new representative in Madison?
From the north side of Eau Claire?
Yeah, Larry Balo.
Well, I've talked to Larry a few times in the past. I don't think he's a flaming liberal. I don't think we have to worry about him doing anything really left-wing, radical, drastic. I think he's pretty level-headed, and
I do.
I think he'll represent us fairly down there. Just like any politician, you got to call them up and keep their feet to the fire and let them know how you feel on the issues. If nobody ever writes or calls their congressman or their representative, that's when they start going off on their own tangents. But they know that every call, there's 10 people behind that call that feel the same way.
Yeah.
The same with letters and telegrams and email. Email is a good way now to keep in contact with your representatives. And there'll be plenty of issues that people can call them up and remind them how they feel back here in the Eau Claire area. Remind him and Krybeck and Zine and Sikora. And that's how you let them know how you feel. But you have to keep in touch with him.
Okay, Chucky.
I think he'll be all right.
And thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks for calling in.
Adios.
Okay. All right. What we have here coming out of Washington maybe has already hit the news. I didn't watch tonight's news, but there's a possibility that there's a 13-year-old boy out there that's saying Bill Clinton is his father. Now, I don't know if that's been on the news yet, except for the Washington or the New York Post has been carrying some articles over the weekend on it. But I have some information here on it that I'll bring up before I take the next call. This is a world exclusive. This came out a couple of days ago on January 2nd. I didn't catch anything in the Leader Telegram the last couple of days, so maybe this is still on the back burner in most areas of the country. Starts out, he's been told all of his life that Bill Clinton is his father. And late last month, 13-year-old Danny Williams of Arkansas underwent a DNA test to find out the truth. And now just 24 hours later, the Drudge Report first revealed that the White House was being rocked by a new DNA terror. The story was out of control and landing on front pages of newspapers all over the world. Clinton paternity bombshell, screams the New York Post in their front page. London's Fleet Street was fighting over any new scrap of information. This says here it's not the race of the mother that's is trouble, or the fact she was a prostitute, one Clinton advisor told the Drudge Report late Saturday night in hurried breath. It's the chance that if the test comes back positive, he is a deadbeat father. In other words, for 13 years he hasn't paid any child support or given any attention to his son. The results from the DNA test are still not known as this report aired. The Williams DNA sample sits in a lab somewhere in the southeast United States, and results from the test will be matched with information found in the independent counsel impeachment report that Ken Starr delivered to Congress. The Star magazine and ace investigative reporter Richard Gooding hopes to determine Danny Williams' true paternity by matching the teen's DNA with information made public in the Star report, information that traced the president to Monica Lewinsky. It is believed that the information found in the Star material will allow 99% accuracy on paternity results. The Drudge Report has also learned that Starr and Gooding have arranged for Williams and his mother to hold an all-media press conference blowout if the test comes back positive. The whereabouts of Williams, his family, or reporter Gooding are not known at this time, so they're being hid for safety's sake. Then somebody in the White House comes back and says this is completely blank. I guarantee you that if you do this, you'll never work in Democratic politics again. That was the threat issued by George Stephanopoulos to Steve Denari, director of Ross Perot's Illinois campaign back in '92, when Denari informed him that he was ready to go public with this same story back 7 years ago. If you went on the radio and said that Bill Clinton is the father of an illegitimate black child, you will be laughed at, Stephanopoulos said. People will think you're crazy. You'll be embarrassed before the National Press Corps. People will think nobody will believe you. And people will think you're scum. So that's what Stephanopoulos said 7 years ago. Now this seems to be coming back onto the front burner again. It could possibly be true. So we're kind of waiting to see where that goes in the next few days as they check the DNA. All right, go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, Chuck. How you doing?
All right.
I want you to know, in light of what you just told everyone, I spent some time in Arkansas myself, and I look in the mirror, and I look exactly like Bill Clinton, and I really have never met my dad, so maybe a paternity test for me, too.
Well, you know, he was a very active person back in Arkansas back in the 70s and 80s. If you were born in the 70s,
I was, but
he could very well be your dad.
even though he might be my dad, I say impeach him anyways. He's a disgrace to this country. I also have a question for you. I've been known to dabble in well, not myself, but I participate in the world's oldest profession, and I would like to know, our new governor to the west, Jesse Ventura, has talked about legalizing prostitution, and I'd like to know how you feel about if this would benefit our country or hurt it, or what your views are on prostitution.
Wait a minute. First of all, you're saying you've been known to dabble in as a prostitute, or
No.
using
No, come on now, Chuck.
or is using prostitute?
I mean, hey, I look like Bill Clinton. I'm not the best looking guy in the world, and you know, I gotta get some help sometimes. Yeah, so I do.
So how far do you have to travel from Eau Claire to
Well, be honest, not very far. There's a few on the outside of outskirts of Eau Claire. I'm really not at liberty to say. I really don't feel like being caught.
You know, I've been thinking about that the last few weeks. About that's one thing you never really see in this area is you never see any prostitution arrests, you never see any illegal gambling arrests, and you know they're both around,
Right.
just like all the illegal drugs. And you very seldom do you see any heroin or cocaine busts in this area, but you know a lot of people are using it, and because you hear about it, and it was at this party, somebody sold that person some cocaine, or but you know it's there, but it just seems like it's something that either the law enforcement winks at, or they don't know who's involved in it. But you're probably the first person I've talked to in living in Eau Claire for almost 14 years now that's ever even said there's prostitutes in this area.
Well,
I don't think I've ever. I think there was one article in the Leader Telegram 4 or 5 years ago about a girl that was probably a prostitute in the area. But other than that, it's been very sparse reporting on that and illegal gambling and the use of illegal drugs in this area. So, so you say within 20 miles there's prostitutes in Eau Claire that you've been able to find?
well, I more or less 20. It's not a big deal at all. It's just on the outskirts of Eau Claire, a little ways, and it's a nice, clean place, you know. So it really doesn't bother me.
Well, you know, prostitution is, like you say, it's one of the oldest professions out there, and it's something that's it's been with us since from thousands of years, and it'll probably always be with us as long as there's human beings on Earth. I think it's just part of human nature. And as far as legalizing it, though, I don't know where Jesse's coming from on that, because I don't know if he actually wants to have prostitutes have legalized prostitution in Minnesota. But maybe he's talking about decriminalizing it. I haven't heard his stand on it.
Okay, thanks a lot, Chuck.
Okay. All I know is that back in the old days when him and Fred were wrestling on the East Coast, Fred taught him everything he knows, including the hook. And that hook got Fred, I think Fred had something like 317 wins and 12 defeats using the hook. And he pinned Jesse one time. They got in one of them, you know how sometimes those guys will go into the ring as partners and then they get mad at each other? Well, him and Fred got into it, and Fred had to put him down with the hook. And then from that point on, I think that was the night that Jesse retired and went into politics. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, Chuck. How you doing?
All right.
Yeah, I figure you hit most of the illegal activities going on. I was just wondering your views on pornography.
My views on pornography.
Yes, sir. That's that.
Is there pornography in the Eau Claire area?
Oh, yeah, I've seen plenty.
Where at?
I don't know, you can rent it at various video stores around the area.
Well, you know, there was a group around Eau Claire that did some picketing and tried to get several of the video stores to quit renting and selling.
I was unaware of that.
But it didn't really seem to go anywhere. I think a couple stores went out of business and a few others cropped up. So there always has been kind of a constant 15 or 20 places in the Eau Claire area where you can actually rent or purchase pornography. But I noticed the 2 of the 3 pornography stores in the downtown area have closed now. The one across from the post office and the one about a block away from the post office. Those are both gone. And so maybe there is some progress being made in that area. Or,
Well, there is the Superstore Pure Pleasures that opened up. It's out on 53, I think.
yeah, I've seen it up there. I understand the sign says open 24 hours a day, so maybe they aren't getting any progress in that area. But it's one of those things that what are you going to do? As long as the local governments allow them to be open, that's where it has to start. The local governments have to shut them down for whatever reason they can. They usually do it on a health basis. I know the city, county health departments checked a couple of the stores in the downtown area a few years back and put some restrictions on what they could do inside of those areas. But maybe they haven't checked this one. That's way up by Halley or even Chippewa County. So they're going to have to deal with it up there. But I think it's another thing with the internet. There's a proliferation of pornography on the internet. It just seems like it's actually getting bigger than ever, and it's one of those things that people have to personally change their own viewpoints and their own feelings and their own mind and heart on that kind of issue if they want to decide whether they want themselves and their children to get a hold of that stuff. Okay. We have some information here coming out of the Spratly Islands that China is building some major bases about 800 miles away from the mainland. It doesn't sound too good. A lot of people are saying that the next war, the next world war in this country will probably be some kind of combination of China versus the United States, or China and Russia versus the United States, or United States and Israel versus China. But China's going to be in the mixer somewhere. They're becoming a superpower by theft and by trade and by traders in this country. They've gotten some very sophisticated electronic equipment and computer chips and computer hardware and software that they're using in their missiles, and it was given to them by American countries. There was just a report came out of the House a couple days ago that said that what was transferred to the Chinese damaged our security and put us in a very vulnerable position. And some of the people involved in that gave very heavily to the Democratic Party and to President Clinton's re-election with hundreds of thousands of dollars. And now China is building a military facilities on an island in the South China Sea about 800 miles from their mainland as part of an aggressive grab for undersea energy resources and control over strategic waterways, according to a senior House member. The U.S. government must end its silence about the Chinese military buildup in the Spratlys, said Representative Dana Rohrabacher after a recent flight to the contested Spratly Islands on a Philippine military C-130 plane. It is dangerous for the administration to continue to hide this issue from the Congress and the American people, he said. Now is the time to impress upon the Chinese the need to end their aggression towards their neighbors. Mr. Rohrabacher, a member of the House International Relations Committee and chairman of the Science Subcommittee on Space and Aeronautics, discussed the Chinese military activities in an interview after returning from a fact-finding tour to the Middle East between November 30th and December 11th. This article is in the Washington Times, Monday's paper. There's obviously a strategy here, the California Republican said, by claiming territory at Mischief Reef. The communist Chinese are not only going to be able to control one of the most important waterways in the world, but they're also in a position to grab huge energy resources. So it goes on to tell about what they're building there, but it's not good news that China is getting more aggressive militarily. And of course, I'll tell you, you go into Walmart, Kmart, Shopko, just about any of the major stores in this area, turn up the equipment upside down and you look on the bottom, it says made in China. It's about everything we're buying out there that you wear, shoes, gifts. That money is controlled by the Red Chinese Army. It's not, they do not have democracy in China like we do in this country. And China is now a threat, but they're going to be a major threat to the democracy of this country in the next few years. Matter of fact, the year 2000 is the year of the dragon in the Chinese calendar. And we're going to be in some real deep trouble with China in the next few years because of the billions of dollars that is being transferred from consumers like us, probably even this teddy bear here. If I look at it, if I could find a label on it, it would probably say China on it. But just go in the store and item after item after item, right on the bottom says made in China. A lot of your sophisticated computer stuff now is Chinese. And all that money, one way or the other, funnels through the Red Chinese Army before it gets to members of the Communist Party in China. But they control all industry, and all the money flowing in and out of China goes through the Red Army. A lot of that money is diverted to nuclear weapons and to build up their military, to the point where they're probably one of the most powerful militaries in the country, I mean in the world, and could be more powerful than the United States, because we're in such bad shape here that Clinton finally threw in the towel and said he's going to pump some money back into our ailing military budget. And we found that out when we just did this last bombing campaign against Iraq. We used up something like 300 of those missiles, and they're over $1 million a piece, so we used up $300 million worth of military hardware right there. But a lot of our equipment now, they're having to cannibalize and taking parts off one plane to keep another plane running, and so they got a lot of planes that are just being used, planes and ships and military equipment that's useless because it's been cannibalized for parts to keep other helicopters and planes and ships running. So we definitely need some military turnaround and military build up in this country if we're going to show some kind of a defensive posture against the enemies of democracy. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
I was wondering what your views are on the NBA lockout. Looks like a pretty fit guy. I was wondering if the basketball lockout affecting your life.
All right, well, I'll tell you, back when I was playing pro ball, we didn't have any of these big salaries. We all got $1,000 a game, and then after the game, we went down to Hardee's and we ate. That was it. We got on the bus and we went home. None of this $100,000, $200,000 a game, $300 million. We didn't have all of these fancy contracts with tennis shoe companies and stuff. We couldn't even afford tennis shoes back then. We had to play on our knees. It was a pretty rough sport back then. And now they just got it too easy. So if they want to have a lockout, just let them. I don't think too many people, the only people that are hurting are the people that are selling the jerseys and the tennis shoes and all the other endorsements and stuff that goes along with it. The games themselves are, of course, yeah, we'd like to see Michael Jordan play a few more games and all that, but I think this is the players' fault. Players are very, very well played, and the owners have to make a buck or they're not going to stay open. So if they don't get it together, they're going to just scrap this season, the 98-99 season, and possibly what they need to do is maybe just go out there like any other, when any other group's on strike, go out there and find some scabs and put them in uniforms and start playing. Maybe after 20, 30 games of that, the other players will throw in the towel and say, hey, I want to get that $100,000 a game and I want to get back there and start playing. But it's affecting things from everything from the trading cards to the players selling Coke and Pepsi and the whole works. It affects everything up and down the line, so it is hurting a lot of people economically, and I'd like to see it settled and so they can get back to playing. But they're just, it's going to leave a sour taste in people's mouth, just like the last baseball strike. It took several years for that to recover. The only thing that really brought baseball back around was Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. That's what brought people out to watch baseball again from their major league strike. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Oh, hey, Chuck.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Merry Christmas and Happy Kwanzaa to you.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you very much. How you doing tonight?
Well, I'm watching a little TV tonight. Here's the first question for you.
Go ahead.
I've been living in the Eau Claire area now for about 9-10 years, and I've noticed there's some racial tension going on here within the community. I noticed a lot of a high Hmong population has started to move in, and I was just wondering what your feelings were as far as the entire immigration procedure here in the United States, whether we should continue, let's say, the border battles down in Mexico, or we should just keep those wetbacks out of the country. I'll hang up and let you answer.
All right. Well, immigration is this country's made up of immigrants, and there is a legal process to go through to come in and immigrate into this country, become a citizen. But then we have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people that are coming in illegally across the southern borders, in through ships, even coming into Lake Superior and Lake Michigan, coming in that way on ships, coming in on the west coast, east coast, Gulf of Mexico, the border from Texas over to California. A lot of people are coming across that way. So they're going to have to clamp down, and once they get into this country, it's hard to track people down because you don't know who's legal and who's not, and there's laws against just going up and harassing people and saying, let me see your ID card, unless they've actually violated some laws. So, but the Clintons have been very, very loose and open on letting in millions of people in the last 6 years. I'm talking about millions of people coming into this country from all over the world. And in one way, that lets you know that we're a country where when you open up the gates, people come into. There are countries in this world where you open up the gates and people flee. We saw that in the Eastern European countries when communism started falling. People where repression just got to a point where people started fleeing by the hundreds of thousands, so they had to change their system over there, or they weren't going to have anyone left to even close the door because everyone was leaving. So we do have some problems with immigration. They need to have some new laws on that area and crack down a little bit. And let's say, hey, we got almost 270 million people in this country. See, one thing that has always been a problem in this country is the Great Society programs that Johnson and Kennedy before that were talking about how they were going to eliminate poverty in their lifetime, and these great big ABC programs and all the various housing programs and all these schemes, billions upon billions of dollars were poured into getting people out of poverty. But then when you let in millions of people that are in poverty every year through the immigration system, you're always guaranteed that you're going to have that certain percentage of the people are going to be in poverty because you keep letting in the poor into the country. There comes a point when you just have to say, well, let's close the doors for a couple of years now, and let's fix what we got in this country, and let's bring these people that are already in this country up to a certain standard so that they're above the poverty level, instead of flooding the country with more poor people and always keeping that poverty level at the same level. You're never going to solve the poverty problem in this country as long as you keep flooding the country with more people, more poor people. So let's take care of the people we've got and bring them above the poverty level. And as far as the so-called Hmong population in this country, the Hmong have been in this country now since the late 70s, and that's nothing new. Most of them have assimilated into the country, and they're doing pretty good. A lot of them are finally getting off welfare. The younger generation, the second generation of Hmong now are moving into some very good jobs, getting educated, graduated into jobs, into political office, graduating from college, and getting good jobs, and assimilating very well. It's the first wave of the Hmong that came in, the elderly, the ones in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. They're the ones that had a tough time learning our language and finding jobs. And there's still some problems in that area that are trying to be addressed. But the younger generation is fitting in pretty well. As far as gang activity with Hmongs, you've got gang activity with Hispanics, with Hmongs, with blacks, with Caucasians, with Indian population, with Japanese, with Chinese. There's gangs of every nationality in the world, there's gangs. So you can't just say that this is something that the Hmong are doing. Yes, they've got gangs, but there are also some very treacherous and notorious gangs that are made up of all white people or all Hispanic people or all black people. So, there you have it. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hello there.
Hello, is this Fred the True Stafford?
Yes,
Hi.
it certainly is. Say, when are you going to talk about impeaching Clinton there and talking to our Congress, our senators, and get them to vote for impeachment?
When is that happening?
Well, they're going to start tomorrow the hearings in the Senate, and if we want to get room, we gotta get the people to call.
All right, so you want them to call their senators?
Yes,
Okay, and that would be,
Boxmeyer, Senator, our friend from just north of Madison, and I got the other fellow who owns the Bucks.
Feingold and Cole.
Yes.
So you need to call Feingold and Cole and let them know how you feel about the impeachment.
That's right.
But Fred, from what I understand, it's going to go to trial just like the Constitution writes down, and that's the way they're going to follow the letter of the law. The House did their part. They had an impeachment hearings. They found 2 charges that were impeachable. So they impeached Clinton on those 2 charges. It goes to the United States Senate where there is a trial. The 100 senators act as jurors, and the head of the Supreme Court, Rehnquist, acts as a judge. 12 or 13 members of the House come over and act as prosecutors and lay down the case, and then the senators vote up and down whether he's innocent or guilty. And so that process is going to have to go to its conclusion, and if he's found guilty, that's one thing. It only takes 51 to 49 to find him guilty, but to remove him from office, they're going to have a 2/3 vote.
I know it.
And so he probably won't be removed from office, but he could be found guilty, where then all kinds of things can happen, like there could be a lot of cases brought against him, a lot of charges in civil court brought against him after he leaves office. Ken Starr still might prosecute him on some criminal charges after he leaves office. So they're by no means out of the woods, and Clinton will be dealing with this for another 3 or 4 or 5 years.
I hope so. I hope they get rid of him, though.
Well, I wouldn't hold your breath there, Freddie boy.
I know. But he deserves impeachment and getting removed from office.
Well, exactly what did he do?
He gave, to the Chinese, he gave nuclear technology. They got 13 missiles aimed at us, and he also gave them the Long Beach Naval Station, and there's the two ports on both sides of Panama. He gave that to them.
Well, you know, it's a funny thing, but the House members didn't deal with any of those issues, Fred.
I know it.
So there you have the problem. So what we're left with is a couple of charges dealing with an intern that was having sexual relations with the president in the White House. So that's what Kenneth Starr did after 4 years. Now, if they can come forward with something more than that, then the House can deal with it. But until that point, Fred, this is the only game in town.
I know it.
So I don't think they're going to find him. They're not kick him out of office for the 2 charges that they have against him now. They might censor him and maybe fine him, but he's probably not going to be kicked out of office, because I don't think you'll find 67 senators that'll be willing to do that.
I know what you're saying is true.
Is that Betty talking in the background?
Yes, that's her.
Hello there, Betty. Well, how you doing there, Freddie boy?
All right.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, well, I hope to get rid of this thing and be able to come on in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Bye now.
All right. Okay, so looks like the old clock on the wall says it is about that time again, so we better be wrapping it up here. I think it's about that time, Roy. Okay, Roy says we got about 1 minute left. So let's see if I had one more thing here we could talk about in the last minute. Well, as usual, it's been a very interesting program. We thank you all for tuning in to the Old Cow Report. This is the first new show of the year. We're working on getting some live guests, either by phone or in person in the upcoming year. Some very interesting people, hopefully, to come on the air. We'll take this final call here. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, Chuck.
Yeah.
This would be Jeffrey. Jeffrey Stanford.
Okay.
Cousin of the dude that was just on.
Oh, yeah.
I have one quick question. You weren't talking too much about the racism in Eau Claire. Could you just give me a couple of highlights on that?
Okay, all right. The racism in Eau Claire. I really haven't seen any racism in Eau Claire myself. Of course, I don't know what the younger generation is doing out there in the bars, or if there's bar fights going on between blacks and whites or Asians or whatever's going on, but I haven't really heard or seen that much about any racism in the Eau Claire area. Maybe on the next program somebody can bring that to our light a little fuller, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But I always thought that the Eau Claire area had a fairly good racial harmony. Okay, well, thanks a lot for tuning in on the Old Cow Report. I've been your host, Chuck Lee. Fred the True Stafford will be with us again next week. Thanks a lot for tuning in. The director has been Roy Rogers Hoff Sr., our pyrotechnical engineer. We'll see you next time. Adios, amigos and amigas.